So I think we're going to start. So Afreen here is going to do a little bit of an introduction and then we'll...
Jo has written 110 plays, and one of her plays, which is Light in the Village, also known as Gaon Mein Roshni. And with that, Jo, I'll let you take it away.
I was very young then, 4, maybe 5, but old enough to know I could tell no one. Old enough to know it was dangerous to say. They say children don't know their own minds, but I knew mine. I just couldn't find the words. That's the beginning of one of my plays, a play called Eve, that I performed for the National Theatre of Scotland maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It was the story of my life. And I know I'm here to talk about the art of theatre, but theatre is my life. And my life is in theatre. So bear with me if I don't talk theoretically, but I talk about things that happened to me and that have made me the artist I am. And that experience I've just told you about, of looking in the mirror and seeing a boy and not recognizing him, thinking, oh, that's supposed to be me, but that's not me. And my fear and my bewilderment in England in the 1950s, where there was no understanding or knowledge or mentioning or speak of what it meant to be transgender. And as I grew older, I discovered I wanted to be with girls. I didn't want to be with boys. Boys were horrible. And I wanted to play with girls' toys. And I was always so unhappy at Christmas and at my birthday because I wanted girls' presents and they all gave me boys' presents and I didn't dare ask for what I wanted. And then I discovered I wanted to wear girls' clothes because I hated boys' clothes. How ugly. How ugly boys' clothes were. How drab. And I was deeply, deeply ashamed. I thought I was worse than dirt. Worse than the dirt you pick up off the street. I was disgusted by myself. And much of my life has been spent trying to make sense of who I am and trying to celebrate who I am and to understand my place in this very troubled world. I was very lucky because when I was about 13, I thought I suddenly knew I was going to be a writer. I don't know where that idea came from, but that's what I knew. And that idea gave me, that gave me some stability. That gave me some sense of my own worth. And then, when I was 14, something else amazing happened. I was very unhappy when I was 14. My mother had died 2 years before. I was very vulnerable. I had been sent away to school, to boarding school, to one of these terrible English public schools that you may have heard of. And the idea of this school was to turn me into a man, to turn me into somebody I was not. And it ran through bullying and violence on a terrifying scale. But when I was 14, I was asked to be in a play. And I was asked to play a girl's part in a play, because this was a boys' boarding school. Her name was Sylvia. And I remember the first day that I was at rehearsals. And I'm a bit scared of this man. He's going to be quite cross with me for moving the microphone. And I saw the performance space, and I walked onto it. Oh my God, how beautiful! And in this space, I was no longer shy and frightened. I was somebody else. I could be me. I had a place in the world. I didn't know it at the time, but I had found my vocation as a performer. And it made me very happy. And ever since then, I love standing on a stage. I feel so at home here. And I loved it when it came to the performance, and I was wearing this beautiful skirt and this lovely blouse and these stockings, and I loved my false boobs, and I loved my wig, and I loved having false eyelashes. It was such a joy to me. And I stayed acting girls' parts for 2 years. But by the time I was 16, I became afraid. My shame got the better of me. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll try and act men's roles. But I couldn't act as a man. And I renounced my vocation as soon as I found it. I thought I have to try to be a normal boy. But that first lesson of theatre, that theatre is a place where anything can happen. Theatre is a place where you can transgress, where you can break the rules, where you can be somebody you cannot be in normal life. Oh, what a delight. But I gave all that up, fool that I was, and I tried to be a novelist. But something amazing happened when I was 21. I met a beautiful woman called Susie, and we fell in love with each other. And the second night, we were in bed together. I knew I had to tell her. I was so afraid. I thought she would hate me. But she said, "No, I know there is something very feminine about you. And that's why I like you." And she saved my life. And we had a child. We're skipping forward now to 1980. I'm 30 years old. And I'm in a theatre, and I'm holding my little baby. Her name's Rebecca, and I've got her in a sling. She's so beautiful. My baby is so beautiful. Well, and I'm watching a play. I'm not on stage, I'm with you lot watching a play. And the play is a play that I have helped write. I've translated it from the Spanish. And it's on in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. We were talking about it yesterday. Not doing very well. Tiny audience, maybe 10, very small. But they are laughing at my jokes. And I hear the laughter, and I know I am a playwright. And That's the second lesson about theatre, that it is a place of laughter, it's a place of joy, it's a place of love, it's a place of beauty. And now we're in 1985, and I've been asked to write a play for the Travers Theatre in Edinburgh, very prestigious theatre. Oh my God! And it's a play about 17th century Spain. Very strange. Nobody writes plays about 17th century Spain, and I don't know what to do. And I go along with Rebecca, and I look at the theatre. Oh, it's a pretty miserable place. How can I write a play for this? And then we go off and we meet Susie in a bar, because she and Rebecca have to go home and I have to go to Glasgow because I'm a critic. I'm a dance critic. Well, I don't know anything about dance, but that doesn't stop any critic, really, does it? And it didn't stop me, although I felt quite bad about it. And we were both pretty discouraged because Susie was a writer too. And then Rebecca started to play a game. And the bar, the room, the floor was an ocean. And she said, "Daddy, Mummy, lift up your legs," because the ocean was full of sharks. And they were going to eat our legs up if we let them touch the ground. And then she said, "Okay, the chairs are boats and the tables are islands." And we had to go on a journey all round from island to island without our feet touching the ground, so we wouldn't be eaten up by the sharks. And luckily there was no one else in the bar and nobody threw us out. We had a good time. And then it was time to leave. Oh, and there was such a distance between us and the door. What were we going to do? Well, we decided, we thought about it, and we said the only thing to do was to run as fast as we could, and maybe we'd get there before the sharks got us, all right? Good plan. I'm not going to demonstrate. I can't do it anymore. So we ran to the door, and there were steps up to the street, and we went, "Oh, we've done it." And Rebecca said, No, Mummy, Daddy, run up the stairs. So we ran up the stairs because, she explained to us, these were sharks that could climb up stairs. Oh. And then she and Susie went home, and I got on my train, and I thought, Rebecca has told me what theatre is. Theatre is play. Theatre is the play of the imagination. And if we all agree, this space here can be anywhere we want it to be. And I thought too, we may think we're all grown up and we don't need to play anymore, but we do. And I was on the train going to Glasgow, and it was full of businessmen who all looked very self-important. And I thought, you need to play too. All of you have seen a play in one form or another most days this last week. You've seen it on the stage, or you've heard it on the radio, or you've watched it on telly, or you've been to the cinema, but you need this. Because playing, theatre, is essential for human well-being. That was the next lesson I learned. And theatre is a place of pleasure. Pleasure in feeling. Pleasure in getting involved in the characters on stage and wondering what's going to happen to them. Pleasure in thinking. Pleasure in thinking, oh, what's this play about? And talking about it in the bar afterwards, or the cafe, or wherever. Pleasure, or pleasure in acting. Pleasure in watching the skills of the actors. Pleasure in language. Pleasure in seeing beautiful, sexy people on stage wearing gorgeous costumes. Pleasure. Pleasure in pleasure. Yeah? But also pleasure because a good play should speak to our spirituality. Because I believe then that we are also spiritual beings. So I started to write plays that gave pleasure, I hoped, in all these different ways. No one else was doing that. But somehow, my first play was a big success. I was amazed. And I became a fashionable playwright. In my country, you're allowed to be fashionable and interesting as a playwright for maybe 3 years, and then they throw you on the rubbish heap. But I kept going. And in 1989, something else amazing happened. A play of mine called Lucy's Play went to Los Angeles. And they said, they flew me out. They flew me out to Los Angeles. I've never been to America before. Wow, what a crazy place. Whoa, insane. And Los Angeles was a terrible bloody production, but I was very excited to be in Los Angeles. And it's a city that is very short of water, because the water, it's in a desert, really, and the water comes from a river hundreds of miles away. I forget what it's called. And it's piped to Los Angeles. So it's in a drought all the time. But it is the richest part of the world. Huh? And soon after that, I was in Bangladesh. Imagine that. So I went from the richest part of the world to the poorest part of the world. And you know that in Bangladesh, their problem is not that they've got not enough water, they've got too much water. So there's this incredible imbalance. But also, I understood that the richest part of the world and the poorest part of the world were connected. Los Angeles was rich because Bangladesh was poor. Bangladesh was poor because Los Angeles was rich. And that we live in one world. Yeah? That we are all responsible for each other in this world. And halfway through these amazing journeys, I was in Egypt, I was in Cairo, and I turned on my television set. That's what you used to do with television sets. Turn knobs, you remember? And they were tearing down the Berlin Wall. Imagine. And I knew that the world that I had grown up in had disappeared forever. People said that the collapse of the Berlin Wall was about the triumph of capitalism and the downfall of communism. But I knew that wall held up capitalism as well as communism. And that capitalism was heading for a collapse as well. And we can see it now, all around us. And so, we needed a new form of theatre. A theatre of the world that spoke to the world, that spoke of a new political order, a new social order, a new set of values in every level, including right down to what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman. because by then I was beginning to understand that I was a transgender. That was very difficult for me because when I was a child, words like transgender didn't exist. Literally. I had no way of understanding who I was. But by then, I thought, oh, this is who I am. And so, what I did after that experience in 1990, I went to Bengal. I spent a month in a village, and I wrote Light in the Village. That's where this play that you're going to see tomorrow, well, you'd better see it tomorrow or you'll be in deep shit, I tell you. I shall be very angry with all of you. That's where this play came from. This knowledge that we live in one world. It did very badly in England, in Scotland. I'm always saying this. 2 members of the cast walked out in rehearsal. The critics hated it. It was put on in London. Oops. Hello, microphone. It was put on in London. And, I went. I saw it in London. There was an audience of 4 people. The reviews were so bad, my agent wouldn't let me read them. But that play went to Chicago. It went to Oregon. It went to Singapore. It went to Australia. It went to France. It was translated into Tagalog and put on in the Philippines. And one day, I got a phone call. Somebody rang me up. And he said he was phoning from Knoxville, Tennessee. He said, I used to be a banker in Chicago, and I saw your play, and it changed my life. I stopped being a banker, and I trained to be a social worker, and now I'm living in Knoxville, Tennessee. Thank you, he said. Thank you for your play. Thank you for changing my life. Plonk. Oh, what a phone call. What a responsibility. And I understood then the power of theatre, the power of theatre to change lives. But partly because of Light in the Village, and partly because I started to write about being transgender, this was in the 90s. I stopped being fashionable. Nobody wanted to know me. Oh, God. All my plays were turned down, and I survived through translations, through radio plays, through adapting novels for the stage. But I was not allowed. I was not allowed to write an original play for a long time. So we'll fast forward again. Huh? But something terrible happened at the beginning of the 2000s. 2003. Susie, my wife, suffered cancer in the brain. And early on in the process, when we knew she was going to die and we were looking after her at home, I had to speak at a conference. And being an idiot, I said no. I didn't say no. I agreed to speak. So I was on the stage, very much like this one. Oh, in fact, I was on a podium. Here I was.
There.
Oh, you're a genius. So, oh, what power. I was on a podium and talking about playwriting in Scotland. And we were asked to introduce ourselves. And I said, I was half out of my mind with weariness and grief, and I said, I'm not an English playwright. I'm not a Scottish playwright. I'm a European playwright. That was important. And then I said, and I'm not a male playwright, and I'm not a female playwright, I'm a transgender playwright. And I think that's the first time anybody said those words in public in Britain. Yeah. I was very proud. And then I went home. Oh, God, I was so weary. I couldn't sleep. Susie was in the room next door. I thought, terrible. And I heard a voice in my head. And the voice said, the woman inside you is wholly good. And she will give you the strength to deal with the suffering of the next few months. And then she will give you a new identity once Susie has gone. I don't know if you've ever had a voice in your head, but it's quite something. You have to listen. And somehow that voice got me through, and I started to live as a woman. I told my daughters, I said, I'm so sorry, loves, I just can't go on living as a man, because I couldn't. I was 52 years old. I can't do it anymore, I said. And I'm going to change. I don't know what will happen. But I said, I will always be your dad, and I will always love you. And that was important too. I learned that gender is far more complicated than we believe. So we're going to fast forward again. Oh, the next year, I became very ill. My heart was broken, literally, physically broken. I'd been with Susie for 33 years. And I was in the hospital getting it investigated, and I had all kinds of electrodes strapped to my chest that were sending messages to a bank of monitors in the nurses' station. And I went, I don't know, by some impulse I went for a walk. It was very hard for me to walk. I walked very slowly, I got out of breath. And I looked at the monitors. And there was one where I could see the heart was beating very, 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 very fast. And quite weak, this heart. And I looked at it and I thought, oh God, that poor soul's in real trouble. They are really, really ill. And then I looked at the name. It was me. And I went, oh my God, I am close to death. The next day, my doctor said, he was a theatre goer, he knew my clothes, he was a lovely man. And he said, I've got a new bit of machinery. I want to try it out on you. Ah, I said, yes, okay. So they wheeled me down to where there was a heart, what's it called, a heart scan. And they got something on there. I don't know how it worked, but I could suddenly see on the television screen in front of me. I could see inside my heart. One side of the heart seemed to be okay, but the other side, blood was being pumped up and then falling down again. And I went, oh my God, my heart is bleeding. And I thought, I am seeing a picture of my death. I thought, this is the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. I don't need to see frightening things anymore. I don't need to see violence. I don't need that. I need plays that will heal me and heal the people that see my work. And I started to write. And then, a few years later, I found myself in Italy. I can't explain why, it was very complicated. I'd been asked to write a play about the New Testament, a play about Jesus. And I read the New Testament over and over and over again. Oh, and I was so moved. I hadn't read about Jesus since I was a child. And I fell in love with Jesus. Oh, that was a surprise. But what I loved about him was the way he supported people suffering from prejudice. And I thought, if he knew me, he would love me. And so I wrote a play called The Gospel According to Jesus, Queen of Heaven, which imagines Jesus coming down to earth in the present day as a trans woman. And she tells her story, and she preaches her sermon. And I thought this was a theatre of love. But when I turned up at the theatre for the first night's performance, the street was full of people, of angry people demonstrating against me. Angry Christians who said that my play was disgusting, was an affront, was a disgrace. And news of the demonstration and of my play went out on the internet. And if you Googled it, you would find, 400,000 or 500,000 people all around the world who didn't know the play, but they all said it was disgusting. And they all wanted me to die in horribly unpleasant ways and took great pleasure in telling me. And there had to be policemen in the auditorium to protect me. I was terrified. And I thought, but still, if my play is arousing so much hatred, it must be important. And I've been performing that play ever since then. And I thought, why do people hate this play so much? At that time, every time I walked out in the street, people would shout insults at me. I think, why do they hate me so much? Why do they hate us so much? It's because inside every man there is a woman, and inside every woman there is a man. And our world, our patriarchal world, represses the woman inside the man. Secretly, every man is to be like us. And are ashamed of themselves. And I understood that we really matter. We are the people who are changing the world. The the work I was doing in this play is powerful. It is important. And the play's been to Brazil. It's toured all around Brazil. It has changed Brazilian society. Now it's in Australia, it's in Norway, it's been in France, it's been all around South America. There is a moment where Jesus says, I thought of this last night, seeing my sister in the street. She says, I don't understand why in those few places on this tormented earth where we openly love our dear and beautiful souls. Why we should so often have to work the streets as harlots and whores. But I honor us anyway. For to be us, to embody this so-called shame and this disgrace, is an honor. It is a privilege. And the first shall be lost. And later on she says, bless you if they persecute you for being who you are. Because it means you are bringing about change. And bless those who persecute you. For hatred is the only thing they have. And it doesn't amount to much. And they will lose it in the end. And no matter what they say or what they do, they cannot stop the change that is coming. One day, we will all be free.
Thank you so much, Joe, for that lovely performance and sharing such intimate details about your work. I do want you to speak a little bit about your play, Light in the Village, that's going to be staged in Urdu tomorrow here. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how it relates to building a theater of love, and what are some of the elements, according to you, that help build a theater of love, and how can we continue that sort of practice now moving forward in this world of war and hate?
When I went to Bengal and I visited villages, I remember one village. I don't know if you've ever been, you must have been to Bengal, some of you, but the villages are often round these ponds, or they were in those days. And a lot of villagers get their water from the pond, which is very dangerous because, of course, the sewage goes into the pond as well, and the water is contaminated. And in the villages where that happens, there is a lot of sickness. But this can be remedied by a simple hand pump. Very simple thing. And I remember one village where the pump was broken. And so the people were sick. And they didn't need to be, but no one could repair the pump. That made me so angry. And when I was in Kolkata, I went to the shrine of the goddess Kali. Now, the goddess Kali is the mother goddess who is all over the world. She's in Scotland, she's in Ireland, she's in all over Europe. She is the goddess, the mother goddess on earth, who humanity worshipped before we worshipped the angry male god in the sky. And one reason why the male god in the sky is so angry is because he is suppressing his femininity. That's why he's so unhappy. That's why he spreads his unhappiness all over the universe. But Kali became central to me for that play. Kali, not simply as a destroyer, but Kali as the source of life. Kali as the source of love. And that was who I wanted to commemorate. And also I wanted to praise the courage of ordinary people. When I was in the village, there was a lovely man called Muntu, who was a rickshaw puller. And he used to come to me every morning and on his bicycle, and he would give me rides with great difficulty, great exertion, all round the villages. And I would pay him huge sums of money because I just liked him so much. And I put him in my play. And roads, well, apparently you've cut roads because this is a figure from English imperialism. But I was very concerned about the legacy of the British Empire. I mean, it is the British Empire that is responsible for the suffering of trans women in Pakistan at the moment because they passed these terrible laws. It was the British who passed the anti-gay laws. And this legacy of empire that in Britain we don't understand, we don't recognize. My dad told me that the British Empire was the greatest thing the world had ever seen. How wrong he was. And so that is in the play too. And although I wanted to show the cruelty and injustice of the world, I also wanted to end with an image of hope. And that is why they dig the land at the very end. Because that, in the end, is all we can do. We dig. We do what we can. We do what is in our power.
So yes, we hope that everyone comes to see the play tomorrow, जिसका हमने नाम रखा है गाँव में रोशनी. To hear Joe speak, I'd invited some theatre practitioners like Samina Ahmed and Bakhtawar. I don't know, I don't see them in the hall. So, what are they doing? Can you ask them to be here if they want to be part of it? So, I believe that they got offended that they were not asked to be on stage, which I think is very petty. However, so we will, this is just amazing, isn't it?
That's my fault, I'm so sorry.
No, I mean, this is what Afreen is just telling me, that they wanted to be sitting on the stage. So I said, well, I spoke to Jo, how she wants to do it, and she said, I want to talk to them. And if people are sitting on my side, then who do I address? So I said, well, they can sit here and then they can come up and talk. But apparently they've got offended. I don't know if they're here or if they've left. But I would like to open this now for discussion. If anybody would like to have any discussion, have a talk. I have some people from the transgender community sitting here themselves. So if you would like to, have a time to ask her any questions, or anybody else who wants to talk about theatre or how gendered experience helps us to understand ourselves, our bodies, when we are on stage ourselves. So please, there is a mic. If anybody wants, एक mic यहाँ से ले लें, लोगों को दे दें.
Live theatre value will increase.
Well, that's a really good question. You see, there is something about being in a room, isn't there? There's something about you and me being in the same room together. And there is a power to that. And if, supposing you were watching me on a screen, I think the experience will be different. I'm not going to say it will be worse or better because that would be very presumptuous of me. But it will be different. And I think there is something about being here. There is something about, wow, this is a walk over the light. I can see you and talk to you. There is something about this contact which is so important. And the other thing that really matters about this is that it's not a thing. If you make a film, films are wonderful. I'm not going to read that. Films are wonderful, but it is, it's a thing in a box, in a tin. Well, it used to be nice with a thing sort of fire, yeah? But it's dead.
Dead.
It's an object that can be bought and that can be sold and that can be traded. That's why capitalism is much happier with something like film. Whereas this, oh my God, nobody knows quite what's going to happen, do they? I didn't really know what was going to happen on stage at the beginning of this event. I kept trying to prepare it, and then I would fall asleep before I got to the end. So you don't know, there's something about the unpredictability, something about the human connection that really matters. It's really beautiful. Particularly, when you come in here from the street, everybody driving around in these terrifying machines, you need human contact. You need to be together. You need to feel people.
Yes, as you said, that live theatre has its own value because people want to get rid of the capitalism. And you think the capitalism will be diminishing?
Yes.
In my country, everything is falling apart.
Yeah.
Everything. And it's falling apart because we have been governed by a party that thinks you can trust the market and that government has no role. Not true. And we have to find different ways in my country of organizing ourselves, that's for sure. And I hope and trust that we will.
Thank you, Joe. So, as I said, we had invited a few people to come and listen to Joe's talk and then have a discussion over it. But unfortunately, they were sitting outside and didn't manage to come inside. So I don't know how we can have the discussion, take the discussion any further. And आप लोगों ने कुछ बात करनी थी? तो would Samina and Bakhtavar, who were the only two people from there? Yeah. And Misam, would you three like to, आपने भी नहीं सुना, Misam? You didn't hear the talk? So if you want to make some comments, you can come up and talk, or Bakhtavar or Samina. आप लोग, you want to do it from there? Yeah.
Hello, good evening. It's my name is Hena Baloch, and I am organizer of Sindh Murat March. I'm a Khwaja Sara Hijra feminist, and I would like to ask you something, that in our culture, in our South Asian Hijra culture, we have parallel support systems. We have our chosen families. We call them gharanas in our language. So it's a kinship based system. Like I have a guru, Shahzadi Rai, sitting right next to me, and I am a chela. Like she's my like in according to your culture, like she is my trans mother and I am a trans daughter. So it's a very strong kind of a community support system. So which actually after it actually helped us grow as a community. And right after the colonization, after the British Raj, we do believe that this system, the Gharana system, helped us preserve the Hijra culture and our existence when we were criminalized. So I just want to ask you that trans people in the Western world were also subjected to Victorian morality and all sorts of horrible violence and conversion therapies and whatnot. So, like we have this Hijra support system, the Gharana culture here. So, what are the similarities or differences in your culture? Like I am aware of the house. There are parallel systems such as house mothers in the Western world. So, do you have any sort of a support system for the trans community in West, and especially the place you come from? Do let us know. Thank you.
And there was no support system. And God, I needed one. I don't know how I survived, to be honest. Gosh, I'm so moved actually, just to think of the difference it would have made to me if I had had a guru to go to, if I had had someone who could have helped me and guided me and encouraged me. Luckily, I was helped by my family, by my wife, by my children. And the thing about children is that they love you unreservedly. They love you for who you are. And my children taught me to love myself. I would not have been able to do it without them. I owe them my life. Yeah? But things are changing very, very rapidly in my country. In 2009, when I first performed the Gospel According to Jesus, Queen of Heaven, I was the only openly trans performer in Britain that I knew about. Now, oh my God, there's hundreds, there's hundreds of us. There are massive drag conventions, and drag isn't the same thing really, but I mean, suddenly everything is changing. And when I speak to young people now, young trans people, young queer people, they have a network. They have this network of support for each other. And they see themselves as, it's called gender fluid. They see themselves as both men and as women. And I feel such hope. And my little grandson, because I am a father and a grandmother, my grandson Alex is, now he's 9 years old. And a couple of years ago, he was staying with me. And in my house, there is a photograph of me as a boy, because I really value myself as a boy. I had a very, very, very tough time, and I could have been destroyed. But I was courageous, and I fought through. So to honor that boy, I have his photo in my sitting room. And Alex, my grandson, was looking at this picture. And his mum, Rebecca, said to him, "Alex, do you know who that is?" And Alex said, "Course I do, Mum. That's Grandma when she was a boy." And there was total acceptance of me, who I was and who I have become. So in my country, things are changing. There's a lot of angry people that want to stop change, but things are changing. And I I hope that this change is the precursor of change everywhere in the world. And I so admire your courage and your beauty in standing up and being yourself in this society.
She has been working in Pakistani television and theatre for over 5 decades now. She was one of the first women producers and directors of Pakistan, and her body of work is, goes beyond borders, across countries. And most recently, she acted in Niswaan and continues to grace us with her lovely talent on television as well. Samina ji, I'd like to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us. With us is also Bakhtawer Mazhar. Bakhtawer is a poet, Napa graduate, theatre practitioner, theatre educator, actress, and she has also acted in several theatre productions. She continues to practice theatre. Bakhtawer, we're very happy. Thank you so much for joining us. Nisam Naqvi hain hamare saath. He's also a Napa graduate. He has worked as an actor, director, writer, and has directed several plays and acted in several plays as well. Some of them are King Lear, Kamla, and many more. He was also an HOD at the Arts Council Theatre Academy. Welcome, Nisam. समीना जी, मेरा पहला सवाल आपसे है, अगर आप थोड़ा सा इफ़ यू कुड टॉक अ लिटिल बिट अबाउट कि जब थिएटर आप करती थी तब का थिएटर और आज के थिएटर में क्या आपको डिफरेंसेस नज़र आते हैं, एंड व्हाट कैन वी डू टू ब्रिंग बैक द ओल्ड ग्लोरी?
कुछ मुझे यूँ लगता है कि जैसे कहते हैं जब पहले आप करती थी, को मैं बहुत कोई पुराने ज़माने से हूँ कोई पिछली से कोई 18th सेंचुरी या 16th सेंचुरी नहीं, मगर कोई इतना ज़्यादा मैं देखती हूँ कोई फ़र्क नहीं पड़ा. थिएटर जो है वो ड्रामा हमारा अभी भी उसी एंडेंजर्ड जगह पर है जहाँ पहले था, और एक ये जुस्तजू होती है, एक बहुत एफ़र्ट होता है, और जो लोग भी यहाँ काम करते हैं इस फील्ड में, ये उनकी बहादुरी है कि वो डिस्पाइट ऑल द ऑब्स्टिकल्स जो हमारी सोसाइटी में हैं, जो हमारे लोगों की तरफ से हैं, जो सोचने समझने का ड्रामा देखना नहीं चाहते हैं, या जो कुछ भी है, या जिस तरह से भी, वो उनको पार करके और उसके बावजूद वो ड्रामा करते हैं और कर रहे हैं. ये सब लोगों की बहुत हिम्मत है, क्योंकि अभी तक मैंने जब शुरू किया था आज से कोई 45 साल पहले या 50 साल पहले, तो भी ऐसा ही माहौल था. कमाल अहमद रिजवी आखिर में स्टेज के ऊपर आके इल्तिजा करते थे कि अगर आपको ये ड्रामा हमारा अच्छा लगा है, और हम उम्मीद करते हैं कि अच्छा लगा है, तो अपने दोस्तों को बताइए ताकि वो आके हमारा ड्रामा देखें. और अभी भी मुझे लगता है कि यही है कि ऑडियंस में कम लोग होते हैं और उनको ढूंढ के लाना पड़ता है. और मैंने बहुत ड्रामे देखे हैं, बहुत खूबसूरत ड्रामे देखे हैं. बख्तावर का मैंने काम देखा है, मीसम का और नापा के लोगों का काम देखा है, मगर अगेन इनकी बहुत हिम्मत है और इनका टैलेंट है, और ये जिस तरीके से काम करते हैं, लोगों को लाना, उनके साथ कम्युनिकेट करने का अभी भी एक वो मसला चल रहा है. काम करने के लिए तो जो मसले हैं वो तो हैं ही, कि टाइम निकालना है, जो मेहनत है, जो स्क्रिप्ट है वो कहाँ से आएगी, फाइनेंस कैसे उसको करेंगे, किस तरीके के साथ आपको कुछ दो चार आने मिल जाएंगे. आपकी दाल रोटी, आर्टिस्ट की भी दाल रोटी फ्री तो नहीं होती, तो कुछ थोड़ा बहुत कमाना भी पड़ता है. तो वो किस तरह से ये सारा कुछ होगा. सो ये एक हमारा मसला है, अभी भी है. एंड मैं तो कहती हूँ कि शीमा कमाल औरत है, कमाल आर्टिस्ट है, और आई मीन रियली शीमा, आई हैव ग्रेट एडमिरेशन.
थैंक यू समीना, थैंक यू.
बिकॉज एक इतने अरसे तक अकेले लगे रहना और एक चीज़ बना के रखना, 45 years, it's a long time. And it is amazing.
अमेजिंग हाउ, मैं कहती हूँ कि जो मैं कह रही हूँ ना, कितना मुश्किल काम है ये, बहुत मुश्किल है, और ये फिर भी लगी हुई हैं और कर रही हैं, ये इनकी हिम्मत है, इनकी हिम्मत।
बिल्कुल पागलपन है. Thank you. So Joe, just to let you know what she said that in these so many years that she has also been working in theatre, nothing has really changed or become better. Yeah. Right. So it's still in the in the endangered
Endangered. I
state.
call them endangered.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
of us endangered species.
All of us, yes, true.
Yeah, all of us.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Samina. आप कुछ खास बात बख्तावर से या मिसम से पूछना चाह रही हैं या?
Yeah, I can ask Bakhtavar a question. Bakhtavar, you're not just
If everyone follows English, can we keep the conversation going in English? Yeah? So that Joe can also be part of it? Thank you. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask Bakhtavar that you're not just a theatre practitioner, you're also a theatre educator, and you're training young theatre practitioners for tomorrow. Can you talk a little bit about challenges that you face in imparting education and theatre? Because for the most part, theatre and education, they're exclusive terms. They're not sort of intertwined together. And
Put
also,
in one
if you could
sentence together.
Yeah.
Of course, that
and
is the
also,
main
if you could talk a
challenge.
little bit about why there are such few women in theatre, both as students and as practitioners.
Also, actresses, if you want to call that. I think, yes, you're right. To put education and theatre in one sentence is still taboo, is still a question, a challenge in our society, because people strongly feel that, just like Joe was talking about being a transgender in 50s or 60s growing up, how she felt lonely and how she felt that there was no one else, but she grew up all by herself. I think maybe not in Karachi and Lahore, but in rest of Pakistan, it is a very, very big deal. It's a very, very difficult thing to imagine for girls to actually say it out to their families that we want to be actresses, or we want to act, or we want to do something other than those assigned degrees that your parents want them to do. For example, mostly medicine and engineering and all those degrees, or nursing or teaching. That's where parents stop thinking when they come to think about their daughter's education. I think all the girls who are practically learning theatre have enrolled themselves in the theatre programs and then are actively doing it afterwards also. And even if they drop out middle of their degrees or something, I think I salute them, because it is not an easy thing. Even 15 years back when I was a student myself, we had 3 girls only in classroom, 3 girls, and out of which 1 dropped out and 2 of us graduated with 15 boys. So I think if it was that bad, then still think in my class I teach, I only had 2 girls in my class and I had 12 boys. So if you look at it, I think, Joe, I can completely relate to in a different way, but the struggle is there. We're still fighting the preconceived norms and notions and approval. I mean, we have to not only make our parents agree and approve and see what we see or what we want to do with life, but also the other people around us, friends. And many times people tell me, don't tell people that you do theatre, just tell them that you teach. Why do you have to give the details that you teach acting? Because, then it becomes somewhat controversial or something. So just say that you teach and let people assume that you teach maybe accounting or whatever, So why do I have to pretend that I don't teach acting, I don't act, and I don't want to, I want to direct or I want to write? So still, living in Karachi, the biggest city of Pakistan, with so many opportunities and such a broad mind, so we have so many things going on in city in terms of media, in terms of journalism, in terms of fashion and food and whatnot. But still, when it comes to put education and theatre together, not just students, but I don't see many female teachers teaching theatre. We have 2 academies, Arts Council as well as NAPA, and it's a sad thing that I think, apart from the movement teachers or the, I don't know, but the actual teacher who are teaching acting, improvisation, are only 2. So this is what we have here. So Joe, I completely relate. I understand. Thank you so much for the talk you gave today. It actually helped us a lot to understand your culture and your things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I don't think the talk is only about understanding British culture. I think it is about understanding the pleasure of theatre, the power of theatre, the transformation qualities that one gets from being on stage, as she demonstrated. This and how it helps us to develop, find our strength, fight our fears, find our personalities, how to recognize where we come from, where we are going, what we want to do with our lives. You wanted to ask Meesam something? Meesam, I would like you to, if you heard the lecture, relate to Joe's talk somehow. Thank you.
Meesam, I wanted to ask you that, you were one of the earliest graduates of Napa, and you practiced theatre for a very long time, but now you primarily work in film and television. And a lot of students that we see, they come in wanting to, receive theatre education, but their ultimate goal is to move towards film and television. So there's like this rural to urban migration from theatre to television. So what can we do to sort of keep people to practicing theatre and actually make it a viable art form and not just a stepping stone to fame through television and film?
تھوڑا سا لینگویج بیریئر ہے. اگر اردو میں بات کر لوں تو کوئی پرابلم تو نہیں ہے. جہاں تک میں سمجھا ہوں آفرین, سلسلہ یہ ہے چھوٹا سا جو ہمیں سمجھنے کی ضرورت ہے, جیسے کہ جو بھی بات کر رہے تھے, جو بھی ٹیلنگ اباؤٹ کیپٹلزم, دی امپیکٹ آف کیپٹلزم. تو یہ کیپٹلزم نے, استعماریت نے ہمارے معاشرے کو بہت تباہ کیا ہوا ہے. میرے پاس اسٹوڈنٹس پڑھنے کے لیے آتے ہیں جن کے پاس نوکری بھی کرنی ہے انہیں, اور انہیں پڑھنا بھی ہے. وہ گھر چلائیں یا پڑھیں, یہ ایک سوال ہوتا ہے. اور کچھ لوگ ہمت کر کے, جیسے کہ کہا کہ فیئر اپنا اوور کم کرنا اور یہ ساری چیزیں کرنے کے لیے تھیٹر ہوتا ہے اور لوگ کرتے ہیں اور وہ نکالتے ہیں. لیکن ایک وقت آتا ہے جب کچن پکارتا ہے. جب کچن پکارتا ہے تو الٹیمیٹ گول, جہاں آپ کو تھوڑا سا روشنی مل رہی ہو, گلیم شیم مل رہا ہو, پیسے دکھ رہے ہوں, تو آپ اسی طرف جانے کی کوشش کرتے ہیں اور اپنے گول سے تھوڑا سا ہٹ جاتے ہیں. ڈوئنگ تھیٹر ان پاکستان از ناٹ دیٹ ایزی, ٹو بی آنیسٹ. شیما جی 45 سال سے کر رہی ہیں, سلام. اٹس ناٹ دیٹ ایزی. میری 12 سال میں بس ہو گئی تھی, کچن نہیں چل رہا تھا. اٹس ناٹ دیٹ ایزی. بہت سارے, چونکہ ہم پیٹریارکل ورلڈ میں بھی ہیں, پاکستان بینگ اے پیٹریارکل کنٹری, دیر از اے پرابلم وتھ مین سائڈ آلسو. بریڈ رنر کون ہے؟ ہمارے یہاں یہ سوال ذرا کم کیا جاتا ہے, لیکن ہے امپورٹنٹ سوال ہے, کبھی غور کیجیے گا. ایز اے بریڈ رنر of my family, there are 9 people who are dependent on me and they're not willing to work. And that is very important question. And for that purpose, I need to, مجھے ہونا پڑا اور مجبوری میں مجھے ٹی وی کی طرف جانا پڑا. Because I was not earning too much. صرف اپنی آرٹ کی خواہش کو پورا کرنے کے لیے اگر میں یہ کام کروں, اپنے دل کی خواہش کو پورا کرنے کے لیے کام کروں, تو نہیں, میں کمپلیٹ نہیں کر سکتا. اسی طریقے سے اسٹوڈنٹ بھی جو آ رہا ہے وہ بھی یہ دیکھ رہا ہے کہ الٹیمیٹلی گول کیا ہے, کیونکہ ہم گول اورینٹیڈ ہو گئے ہیں. ہم کہاں جائیں گے؟ گھر والے سوال پوچھتے ہیں اس سے, بیٹا یہ 3 سال پڑھنے کے لیے جا رہے ہو, تو 3 سال کے بعد آؤٹ کم کیا ہے؟ پیسے کما سکو گے؟ گھر پہ مہینے کے 50-60 ہزار روپے منیمم لا کے دے سکو گے؟ اگر نہیں لا کے دے سکتے تو اس چیز میں جانے کا کوئی فائدہ نہیں ہے, کیونکہ ہماری یہاں اسٹڈیز کا پرپز بھی یہی رہ گیا. آئی ایم سوری ٹو سے, ہم فزکس اس لیے نہیں پڑھنا چاہتے کہ ہم فزیشین بننا چاہتے ہیں. ہم اس لیے پڑھنا چاہتے ہیں کہ ہمیں ایک اچھی نوکری مل جائے. ہم بزنس مینجمنٹ کرنا چاہتے ہیں, اس وجہ سے کرنا چاہتے ہیں کہ ہماری ایک اچھی 6 فگر کی 7 فگر کی سیلری لگ جائے گی, اینڈ دین ویل ڈو سم تھنگ. ہم دل کے لیے نہیں کرنا چاہتے, ہم اپنی مرضی سے جینا نہیں چاہتے. بہت سارے لوگوں کو گلا گھونٹنا پڑتا ہے, اس میں چاہے لڑکا ہو لڑکی ہو, چاہے تھرڈ جینڈر ہو. اس کی تو میں بات ہی نہیں کر سکتا یہاں پہ. میں بڑا شرمندہ ہو رہا تھا جب جو یہاں پہ بات کر رہا تھا کہ ان ہز کنٹری تھنگس آر پروگریسنگ, بٹ ان آور کنٹری نو. Sorry to say, we are not progressing. We are not even accepting Joyland, the first film which talks about gender issue. We are not accepting that. We are demanding ban. यस वी आर, मैं भी उसके अंदर मैं वी का वर्ड इस्तेमाल कर रहा हूँ. उसकी वजह हो गई है हमारे माशरे में हम डोमिनेटेड हैं बाय 80% ऑफ रिलीजियस फेनेटिक्स. नो, वी आर नॉट प्रोग्रेसिंग. ऑल्दो इसके बीच में अगर कुछ ऐसे लोग हैं जो काम कर रहे हैं, सल्यूट, दे आर डूइंग समथिंग. बैलेंस बनाने की एक हमारे यहाँ मोतदिल माशरा नहीं है, एतदाल जिसे कहते हैं, बैलेंस बहुत ज़रूरी है. मैं अगर टीवी में गया तो ये सोच के गया कि ठीक है टीवी करूँगा, 1 साल 2 साल थोड़े से पैसे आ जाएंगे तो फिर वापस आ जाऊँगा थिएटर के अंदर, फिर जब जेब खाली हो जाएगी तो दोबारा टीवी पे चल जाऊँगा. एंड दैट्स हाउ इट्स बीन डन.
So if I take what Misam has just said for you, Joe, what he's talking about is how it is almost impossible to make a living through theatre in Pakistan. I would actually say it is almost the same everywhere in the world, Misam. I know some of the greatest actors and actresses in UK who work as waitresses when they don't get roles in theatre. So it is nothing unusual about Pakistan. I would also say, Misam, we take few steps forward और कुछ कदम आगे जाते हैं, कुछ पीछे जाते हैं. We've taken many steps forward. The transgender community now can come and sit here and say that we are transgenders. It's a huge step forward for Pakistan. They get ID cards now, they get recognition now, they can write on their passport. So things go forward and there are things, and we move. Obviously, nothing is satisfactory in this country. But maybe we can take the discussion forward on how you would respond to somebody who's saying, how do I make a living? Because I cannot make a living through theatre. So what do I do? My passion is theatre. I do want to do theatre. But which I see, all our people have the same issue. How do we live if we doing theatre? How do we live? We have families, as he said, who are dependent on us. And so what do we do? So, but before you answer that, I'd also say that after all, there are poets who never make any money. There's so many people who never make any money. And why can't we do a job and still do theatre? Which is what a lot of people all over the world do. They work in the mornings, they do theatre in the evenings. All over India, I've seen that. In India, we pay our caste, and even though it's a small amount, but we pay every member of the caste. In India, they don't even get paid because there is no money for theatre in India either. It is these things like writing poetry. You don't expect to be paid for writing poetry or we write a short story, or it's not because you're going to be paid for it. Anyway, that's my point of view, that I feel that there has to be a certain madness in which we have to live, create our own world and continue. Of course, we have to feed ourselves and our families. For that, we do other things. Joe, would you like to take us forward a bit?
Well, I think that the situation is exactly the same in my country. And theatre writers who establish themselves in the theatre, they can't wait. They're desperate to get out and write for film and for television.
Yeah.
Because it's the same situation. How can you make a living in theatre, they think? Well, I would have gone down the same road, but film and television demands naturalism. It demands realism. And I cannot write that way. I think television is a poetic medium, actually, but television executives don't. so it's no use. But actors cannot act on the stage. But in the past years, things have got worse and worse and worse. And I suspect that in the coming year, many theatres are going to close down because it's impossible. And of course, the Conservative government encouraged that. They don't want theatre. They don't want independent thought.
Exactly.
They don't want schools. So important to teach theatre in schools. They're stopping theatre and literature being taught in school. They're literally doing that. They are stopping literature and theatre being taught in universities. So theatre and literature are being driven underground in my country.
Yeah.
And in one sense, yes, I remember how much poverty me and Susie went through. We didn't know how we were going to manage from one week to the next, quite often. And how did we bring up children? My God, I don't know. I don't know how we managed it, but they say to me, Dad, we never knew we were poor. And I thought, oh, we must have been very good at fooling them somehow. But I don't know. The answer is love.
Yeah, absolutely.
This
is what the whole today's discussion was about. It's about bringing love.
The difficulty, of course, if you're a poet, generally you can write poetry on your own and you don't have to have an organization, a stage to... But yeah, we need love. We need people that want to create for the love of it. And there's no other way forward.
No other way forward.
No other way forward. And, the work that you are creating is beautiful. Very beautiful.
Samina, आप लोग ने जब शुरू किया था तो वो theatre लाहौर में, तो was there any payments for anybody? It was just out of passion, ना? हाँ. Yeah.
No, there was always a small amount that was there. Very tiny.
Yeah,
very tiny.
I mean, just a kind of a...
and many times not even that when we were working. And I mean, this was professional theatre, which was ticketed, but the ticket was also very low. And but there was a very small amount that we were given.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right. There has to be a passion and the need from within you to connect to people and to do something like act or direct or create something on stage. It has to be a passion, and money doesn't come into it.
Yeah.
It should not come into it, because if you're just looking for money, then there are many other things that you can do.
Yeah.
But if I may,
Sure, please.
I think then it becomes a matter of choice or threshold for the pressure, how much pressure you can take in your personal life. Because being a 20-year or 20-something student, you can choose to take up only passion projects and work as you go because you do not have responsibilities. I kind of agree with Misam here, because once you cross your 30s or once you start having your own family or you have responsibilities, then I think you have to kill a little bit of your own self, your passion, and then make a difficult choice if you have to. If you don't have any other way, then, for example, Misa moved from theatre, not completely, but he's somewhat in between, theatre to TV, not because he likes or enjoys doing TV work, but because he has to. So I've seen many, many theatre practitioners here in Karachi also, wonderful actors, who are part of your team also. But then slowly, gradually, they started doing dramatic readings or other things just because they want to do theatre, but that on their own terms or time, because they had to manage and maintain family time and job and money and all that. So I think then it becomes just a choice or how much pressure you can take.
Sure. It is a question of choice and priorities and decisions that one makes about one's life. Did anybody else from the group or anybody want to say anything? Ji, Vajdan.
Hi, my name is Vajdan. I want to ask something from Joe. I hope I can articulate it all right. My question is about symbolism. Basically, I had something in my mind, the symbol of swastika. As swastika is an ancient symbol, but it has been corrupted in the last 80 years or so. It is still very sacred in our subcontinental region, and it has its own wisdom in it. So basically, I want to ask from your region, what does that symbol mean, and how can such ancient symbols connect us and tell us what wisdom do they hold in them, if any? Yeah.
Okay. Well, um, for white people in Britain, the swastika means Nazism. That's what it means. And of course, there's a very large Hindu community in my country who will see the real significance of it. It's funny performing a play about Jesus, and then you think about the cross, and the cross is a torture implement. That's what it is. I hate it. I think it's very difficult to use a symbol like that. I think, in fact, I'm sort of what I'm kind of on the way of just about to say is I really have no idea how to answer your question, except to say that the sacred dimension of life is incredibly important. There is so much unhappiness in my country. There is mental health issues are incredibly important. So many people are ill. So many young trans people. Well, I think 50%, that's half of all trans young people, have tried to commit suicide. It's horrifying. And there is, well, you probably know that people that are physically ill in my country just now are being forced to wait in hospital corridors. They're being forced to wait in ambulances. The healthcare system is breaking down on every level. And there is so little care for mental health issues. And part of it, I think, is because a materialist capitalist world tells us that we can be happy if we buy things. But of course, we can't be happy through buying things. We need a deeper emotional sustenance. We need to be loved. We need to love and to be loved. And I think we need some kind of spiritual dimension in our lives, but I couldn't even begin to talk about what that really means. And not only that, but of course this obsession with materialism, with buying things, is destroying the planet. We in the West are destroying the planet.
This kind of consumerist society that we have become. Joe, can I ask you to quote from your play before we end and to close the session? Yes, it would be lovely if you could do something from Jesus.
Maybe I could bless this theatre. Would that be acceptable?
Absolutely.
At the end of the play, Jesus blesses the theatre and blesses the audience. And how lovely that you have a benediction at the end of your play last night.
Yes.
I was so moved to see that.
For Samina, and because you didn't know this, that her play, which is called The Gospel.
Well, the Gospel according to Jesus, Queen of Heaven.
The Gospel according to Jesus, Queen of Heavens.
And it imagines Jesus coming back to earth in the present day as a transgender woman. And at the very end, she says, and now, let's bless. And she invites the audience, and you can do this if you wish, to hold hands. I don't know if I will be breaking several terrible taboos in the society. Yeah. But so if you want to, you can hold your neighbor's hand, and you can close your eyes. Because blessing is a very serious business. And she says, bless the timid and the shy. For we thank you. For we shall be shameless. Bless the lonely and misunderstood, for we shall have everyone we want. Bless the poor, for we shall be rich. Bless the rich, for they will lose everything. Bless the boy in the closet in the silk wedding gown, for she shall come out. Bless the prostitute, for she shall be honored. Bless the frigid and the impotent, for they will have sex forever and ever.
Wow.
Ah, bless the fathers who don't care because they've never been cared for they shall be loved. Bless the mothers who hit because they cannot still their children's tears, for they shall be comforted. Bless the bully and the criminal, for they shall lose all fear. Bless the sad, frightened souls that go into government, for they shall lose their power. Bless those of us who attack and who bomb and who starve, those people they consider to be their enemies. And bless those enemies who fight back as best they can. For they shall all come to know that we are all one people in the end. Bless this theatre for all the joy and pleasure it brings. Bless Tehreek and Niswaan. Bless Shima for all the amazing work they do to bring light and love and liberation to the world. Bless this troubled city. And one day, maybe, it will find peace. Bless all of us. Bless us when we're happy. And bless us when we're sad. Bless us when we're frozen in terror. Remind us we are not alone. We never were, we never are, we never shall be. For he is she, and she is he, and we are they, and they are we, and shall be, forever and forever and forever. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I would like to take a moment and thank everyone for being here. Thank you, Joe, for joining us from all the way from UK and sharing your incredible body of work and for blessing this theatre. Thank you so much, Samina ji. आप इतना time निकाल कर आई अपनी busy shoot से. We all know how incredibly busy you are, and you made time for Tehreek, you made time for this celebration, and you made time for theatre. I'd like to thank you on behalf of everyone in Tehreek and Niswaan, on behalf of Shima ji, everyone else. Thank you so much, Bakhtavar, for making time to come here today. Thank you, Misam, for joining us for this panel. I'd like to thank Shima ji, and I'd like to thank Anwar for doing all this running around. Thank you, everyone. And yes,
So we can also thank the British Council, who facilitated Joe's coming, and because of them, Joe was able to be in Pakistan. So thank you, everyone, and especially Joe for coming all the way and being with us. And we look forward to that. We hope that you will. It will give you pleasure to see your play done on this stage. Thank you. Thank you all.
Do not forget to like the video, subscribe BTL TV, and press the bell icon to receive notifications.
Jesus is the light of the world.